At 5:41 a.m., the first unknown returns are already spreading across the Gulf of Oman, and the USS Abraham Lincoln is already turning into them. Abraham Lincoln's spy network picks up intermittent low contacts on bearing 147, moving 210 knots, still far enough to be numbers on a screen and close enough to become a problem. Lieutenant Commander Mara Velez, in Abraham Lincoln's flag electronic warfare cell, notices one drone uplink hopping every 17 seconds. She notes it the way she notes everything: pencil first, then grease marker on the clear plot overlay. Out of habit. She has no idea yet what that one drone uplink hopping every 17 seconds is going to mean in the next 8 minutes. To understand what Iran just fired, you need to understand the ship that fired it. The Shahid Bagheri is not dangerous because it looks like a carrier. It is dangerous because it is not one. It is a converted commercial hull with a 180-meter deck, enough endurance to stay far from home waters, room for drones, room for helicopters, room for command spaces, and room for just enough confusion to split a defensive network at the worst possible moment. A fixed launcher on shore can be mapped. A mobile launch deck changes the geometry of the fight every minute it stays underway. That is what makes it different from every missile truck and every coastal battery that has come before it. A shore battery fires from a place. This platform fires from movement. It does not have to close the range to win. It only has to move far enough off the expected axis to force a carrier strike group to divide its attention between the coast, the sea lanes, and the open water beyond them. In the Gulf of Oman, that matters. Merchant traffic compresses. Radar clutter stacks against heat haze and sea return. The sky lies. The ocean lies less, but only to those who know how to read it. And the drones are only half the design. The real mechanism is layered timing. Cheap one-way attack drones climb just high enough to be seen, then drop just low enough to distort the picture. They force Aegis ships to spend thought, missiles, and seconds. Beneath that confusion, something faster and lower arrives on a cleaner line. The raid is not meant to overwhelm the strike group with mass. It is meant to trick it into spending the right defenses at the wrong time. Inside the Bagheri's control spaces, the plan is already running. Drone operators watch telemetry bars step in neat columns. A Shahid Soleimani-class escort sits offset from the carrier's wake. Composite catamaran hull cutting hard water, missile cells ready. The drones are not the killing blow. They are the hand that pulls the shield aside. Everyone involved in the raid knows that. No one says it out loud. 4 weeks earlier, Mara Velez sees the same pattern in smaller form. She is not glamorous. She is tired, exact, and permanently surrounded by signal logs. She is the officer people remember only when the spectrum starts behaving strangely. During a routine review of Iranian deck footage, fleet training data, and passive collection from earlier transits, she sees something she cannot unsee. The control bursts are too disciplined, not random, not atmospheric, not a software artifact. Every 17 seconds, the same jump, same spacing, same restraint. She writes a one-page note, clear language, no adjectives. Pre-time counter jam windows to the hop cycle. Offset decoy launch 2 seconds after burst collapse. Hold interceptor commit until false tracks peel away from command updates. She sends it through channels. The response comes back in the driest language the Navy knows how to produce. Low confidence emissions pattern. Logged and filed. She keeps watching anyway. Not because anyone tells her to. Because once, on another deployment, she dismisses a minor anomaly as clutter. 6 hours later, that anomaly becomes a real surface contact. Since then, she trusts repeated patterns more than calm voices. She laminates the timing note and slides it into the binder at her console. She never mentions it again. She just keeps looking at it when the watch grows quiet. Now the watch is no longer quiet. The first sound of the attack is not an explosion. It is the tone of a new track being promoted. Then another. Then another. At 5:41 a.m., an E-2D Hawkeye pushes an update into the group network. Low contacts. Bearing 147. Range 96 nautical miles. Speed 210 knots. 32 seconds later, Mobile Bay sees 4 hotter tracks on bearing 132. Range 88 nautical miles, descending fast into a sea skimming profile. For 3 seconds, the raid looks like one problem. Then the tactical display resolves into 2. High clutter above. Fast killers below. Bearing 147. Fast movers inbound. 4 low tracks. Sea skimmers confirmed. 2 raids. Not 1. Set Aegis Auto Special. Abraham Lincoln comes 22 to port to complicate the geometry. O'Kane fires 2 SM-6s toward the higher control node. Stockdale throws 4 SM-2s into the lower bracket. Ville's hatches clap open. Flame blooms. The missiles leave in clean violence, rising hard before tipping downrange. For a moment it looks right. 2 contacts vanish. Then 6 more appear from behind the first pair, exactly where a smart raid would hide them. Time to impact. 8 minutes. Range. Closing. No one in the room needs the math explained. At these speeds, the difference between a good picture and a bad one is the difference between intercept and obituary. Mara gets on the circuit and tells the tactical action officer the uplink timing is repeating. The Tau does not ignore her. Not yet. But he does what watch teams do when the first layer is still intact. Stand by. She says nothing after that. She looks back at the clear overlay and waits for the next hop. The first failure arrives disguised as success. The SM-6s reach the projected intercept basket and kill air that is no longer occupied. The upper drone wave breaks formation and drops to 63 meters, bleeding itself into sea clutter exactly as the missiles close. The intercept geometry holds. The targets do not. The data was already on the screen. The raid is adapting inside the weapon flyout. Time to impact. 5 minutes. The second failure is worse because it attacks trust. Mobile Bay's radar picture fragments under a timed jamming pulse. For an instant, the display opens clean lanes that do not exist. The track manager tries to rebuild. False separation blooms. One of the low contacts appears to split into 2, then 4, then slide laterally 3 degrees without paying the aerodynamic price such a move should cost. The picture is dirty. Not broken, dirtier, which is more dangerous. That lane is false. Rebuild manually. Hold until solid track. The third failure comes when the defense begins helping the attack. An SM leaves the rail on a solution that looks valid for just long enough to earn commitment. The incoming decoy presents exactly the kind of agile, low-altitude threat SM is designed to kill, and the missile obeys its design perfectly. It kills the wrong thing. The real sea skimmer stays low, cold, and moving. Time to impact. 3 minutes. Now they try to blind the raid. An E-18G Growler shoves focused noise into the approach corridor. For 2 seconds, the jamming appears to smear the drone picture. Then, the surviving tracks sharpen again, tighter than before. The weapon finds the stronger signal environment and corrects through. Instead of losing guidance, it gains contrast. The attempt to blind it gives it a brighter world to hunt in. Cut jamming. Too late for that. Miles to contact? 9 nautical miles. The final conventional defense is steel. Sivs wakes up like an animal. The mount slews. Barrels spin. Then the gun opens at 4,500 rounds per minute, a brutal cone of tungsten and mathematics hammering the projected path. One drone comes apart late and cartwheels into the sea 63 meters off Abraham Lincoln's port bow, throwing spray over the forward edge of the deck. The ship feels the splash through the hull like a fist, but the sea skimmer behind it flies through the burst line untouched because it is not where the system expects it to be until the last fraction of a second. Every conventional defense is now exhausted. The Combat Information Center is completely silent, except for the sound of the tactical display updating. Time to impact, 1 minute, 58 seconds. Range, 6 nautical miles. 5, 4, nobody in the room speaks. 3, 2 miles. The weapon is still locked on, but the fight wasn't over. Because the drones are only the mask, and the real terminal shooter is still riding beneath them. That is the moment the Tau turns toward the electronic warfare table instead of the missile summary board. Tell me what you need. Mara does not give him a theory. She gives him timing. She has been building it since the first line on the plot overlay. Every jamming pulse, every drone correction, every false lane, all of it is slaved to the same 17-second control burst. That pattern is not random. It never is. The raid is breathing on a schedule. If they hit the breath, they do not have to kill the whole body at once. They only have to make it inhale at the wrong time. She orders the ship's emitters held until 4 seconds before the next hop. No noise before that. Nothing for the raid to lean against. She calls the growler and gives a narrow band counter jam window, measured in seconds, not minutes. She tells the decoy operator to launch Nulka 2 seconds after the burst collapses, not before. She tells Aegis to delay the next SM ripple until the false tracks separate from the real one. It is an ugly solution. It requires patience inside the final minute of a missile attack. That is why no one else sees it first. Wait for the hop. The room waits. Now. Jam now. The growler hits the uplink window at the exact moment the raid expects to refresh. The command path tears open for less than a heartbeat. Nulka fires and blossoms into a bright false ship, just off the threatened axis. For the first time in the whole engagement, the real and false tracks separate cleanly on the display instead of merging into panic. At 5:49 a.m., the lead sea skimmer loses update logic at 4.8 nautical miles, rolls 11 starboard toward the decoy, and crosses the carrier's line wide. Decoys away. Shoot the real track. The last SM leaves on a clean solution. This time the missile chases a target that actually exists. It hits at 2.1 nautical miles. The explosion does not touch the hull. But another crippled drone, already committed and blind, plows into the water 58 meters off the starboard quarter. The blast sends a wall of water over the sponsons. Abraham Lincoln shudders from bow to stern. Loose cups jump. Men grab consoles. Nothing touches the hull. The second open loop closes at once. The hidden controller that keeps the raid stitched together is no longer hidden. The passive trail has been there from the beginning. The growler confirms it. The E-2D refines it. An MH-60R holds the surface picture steady while the strike group lines up the answer. Bagheeri and her escort are turning away now, trying to become distance instead of target. They almost make the transition. Almost. 2 FA-18E Super Hornets come off the deck and launch 4 harpoons from 48 nautical miles. At nearly the same moment, Mobile Bay sends 2 Tomahawks at the escort's data link mast and support spaces. The Iranian corvette begins to relocate toward a secondary screen. But movement is no protection once the track is mature. The water between hunter and hunted collapses in minutes. At 5:56 a.m., the first harpoon hits Bagheeri's port quarter. The second tears into the base of the island. 9 seconds later, stored fuel and deck munitions flash upward in a single black-orange column, and the angled runway disappears behind it. The launch platform ceases to exist at 5:56 a.m. The escort lasts longer, only in pieces. One Tomahawk severs the data link architecture. The other opens the ship from the upper works down. Emissions stop. The hull slews out of formation. Fire takes over what command leaves behind. No one in the American formation celebrates. There is too much post-engagement work for celebration. Damage checks, deck inspection, munitions inventory, sensor validation. The business of survival resumes immediately. By 6:14 a.m., the water looks almost honest again. Almost. The debrief enters the log in the old language that strips emotion from everything it touches. All 18 drones destroyed or neutralized. 4 anti-ship missiles defeated. 0 fatalities. Abraham Lincoln operational. Flight operations resumed. That is how the morning is preserved. Flat words over violent minutes. Mara Velez is not carried out of sick as a legend. No one gathers around her console. She takes the laminated note out of her binder, changes low confidence to validated in combat, and slides it back where it was. Then she returns to the spectrum display, because that is where the next problem will appear first. Not with a speech, not with warning, just as another pattern somebody else is tempted to dismiss. Iran spends months building the mobile launch basket, the offset escort, the stacked raid, the pulse jamming, the low-altitude approach, and the compressed engagement window. It fails because one officer refuses to treat repetition as coincidence. It fails because the smallest pattern on the screen matters more than the largest ship on it. Modern naval combat still belongs to steel, fuel, and missiles. But in the last minute, it belongs even more to attention. And the lesson Iran takes home from the Gulf of Oman that morning is the one it least wants to learn. That the most dangerous thing about American naval power is not the missile that fires back. It is the lieutenant commander in electronic warfare who notices one drone uplink hopping every 17 seconds.